Okay, let me get rid of this. So 11:56 a.m. on that date. Now, not many of you remember what you were doing in that minute, but it was a beautiful day, and that minute was about to change my life. For I stood on the north face of Everest at that time. Now you can see blue skies. This was a very famous selfie that I'd managed to do. I am smiling, but I am puffing out of my ass right there because I can't breathe. 6,300 meters on the north face of Everest. Anybody that understands altitude, anyone watched the recent film of Everest, the one thing it doesn't get across is just how difficult altitude is. Now, on these adventures, he's talked about the mountains. I've run 6 marathons across the Sahara Desert. I've done an Ironman, and all of that is easy peasy lemon squeezy compared to climbing high altitude. And I didn't think that was true until I actually got into it. So there I stood, and I was in the Rombuk Valley. Now, the Rombuk Valley is the highest valley on Earth. It's the final piece before you hit the north face of Everest. And it comes down into a bowl. And you can see that in the middle of it is this ridge, and it's framed by ice penitentes. It's the only place on Earth that they occur. And you can see just that's 10 minutes before, and that's 10 minutes after. They're about 200 feet high, these things. And it's an incredibly beautiful place. I'd separated from my team. We were running the British expedition last year, and the ex-SAS guys were ahead. Screw them, they can crack on. And the cameraman who was doing a documentary on us at the time hadn't realized what he'd signed up to, and he was behind somewhere. So I actually found myself alone. And to Chris's point, this was where I actually have my inspiration, is on the mountains. I have a lot of my creative ideas when I'm out in nature. However, the next minute wasn't going to be one of those moments. Because I actually stopped, took my pack off for a break, went to put the pack down, and then the pack went to there, and then it went back again. I hit the deck, I grabbed hold of the rock, because thank God I had rock, and I held on with my bare hands until I drew blood. Because I rode a bucking bronco in the next minute, and the bucking bronco was Everest itself. Now, there's only a few things certain in life. Death, taxes, and Everest is not meant to move. And it wasn't in the holiday brochure. And then there was just a complete silence. Now, this is the moment I thought I'd gone mental, because there's 2 fears for a mountaineer. The second fear is high-altitude pulmonary edema, swelling of the brain. You'll see, as we conclude the story, why I thought it was that. Because I didn't know certainly the mountain wasn't meant to move, so that means I must have gone mental. But then the second fear, which is the biggest fear for all of us, hit next. After the silence became the booms. Boom, boom, boom. The entire Rombuk Valley avalanched. Now, to a mountaineer, an avalanche is a bad day, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I sat there as I watched the entire Everest region avalanche all around me, the ice pinnacles crack and crash, and I just sat there on a spine ridge in just one of the safest places I could possibly be. So if you ever want to come on an adventure, come with me, because I am really lucky. And I watched this unfold. What I didn't know at the time was, the world moved around me. I didn't know what it was, and I sat there for 10 minutes wondering what it was. I was waiting for my colleagues to catch me up, to put some form of sense. And I actually just sat still, because with high-altitude pulmonary edema, that's the best thing you can do. And I waited. That was a very long time. And that's when you really kind of reflect on what life is. Now, to give you a context, you may remember what I didn't know, and I wasn't going to know for 4 more hours, was I was in the middle of the 8.1 earthquake in the Himalaya region, and we were in the epicenter on the north side in Tibet. Now, you may remember on the news, those people who were watching and followed it, you saw the south side where the avalanche hit. And you see 19 people died that day, in that instant. The disaster was way bigger than that, which you'll see in a second. But to put it into context, That is where the south side happened. There was subsequently a helicopter rescue on the south side. It's the highest helicopter rescue on Earth. Now, I love this slide because that's how high most ducks and geese go, followed by light aircraft. You know already you really shouldn't be up here, right? And that's the highest helicopter rescue on Earth. And that's where we were. We were it's not my best claim to fame, but we were the highest men in the world that day. And that's not a good day to be the highest men in the world. But we were also one of the humans we were the only humans to have experienced it, because this hasn't happened since the 1800s. And in the 1800s, human wasn't stupid enough to climb this mountain. So I relate with Chris when people call me stupid. So that's where we were. That was the deadliest day on the mountain in history, which is a big statistic, and the worst natural disasters ever. And 9,000 people died that day. So that's a big day. And that's what I want to talk about today. Big days in your business and innovation, because it's all linked. I run businesses. I love strategy. And I'm going to talk to you about the killer strategy I believe we all need. But I'm going to talk to you about it in the context of Everest, because then you might actually listen. Because it's one of the best metaphors ever, because this place is a really dangerous place to be. So is business, by the way. And they're dying all the time, but in a different way. So your world's moving from underneath your feet all the time. Brexit. I'm so bored with those conversations already in the businesses I'm advising, because I love this room, because it's like, yeah, crack on. We're going to get on with it anyway. And that's the attitude we can have, because that's not the story. The story of that day is what comes next. And like anything, when the world moves from underneath your feet, when businesses shift, when industries shift, when technology shifts, it's what comes next that matters for all of us. But before I tell you what comes next, you're going to have to understand why I was on that mountain. Otherwise, you'll think I'm completely crazy if you don't think I'm crazy already. So let's go back. Why was I on the mountain? Why are we in business? Why are we building that company? Chris and I resonate so much because you've used the word love and passion already. And you'll see a big heart in a couple of these slides coming up, because I believe that's where it begins. And you need to understand why I was on that mountain and why I build the businesses I build, for you to truly understand me. And by the way, if you can't answer that questions in your own businesses, you need to go and do some thinking. Because you need to be able to answer that question at the deepest possible level to get the talent around you and to get that engagement. Now, 12 years ago, I sat on my father's hospital bed. And he sat there and he looked into my eyes and he held my hand. Now, that was really weird for a start. I'm a working class boy from West Wales. My dad doesn't do emotion. Nobody, like us blokes, we kind of don't do emotion, do we? So the fact that he was holding my hand, looking in my eyes, kind of freaked me out anyway. And then what he told me next was going to define me and set me up, and that's why I was on Everest, because he said that. Son, I've been such a fool. I regret so much in life. He hadn't done and he subsequently went on and told me what he regretted and what he wanted to do with his life and how fear had stopped him and how he hadn't tried and how he hadn't done some things and he wished he'd had. And he died 2 days later. He died with his dreams intact. And that's when I had the fuck that moment. I am not going out that way. And my dad, thank you. And my dad, he didn't give me a legacy in wealth or anything, but he gave me a legacy in that moment. And that's where I changed everything from that moment. Everything. Because my message is the twofold today. Live a life of no regrets. And that's my dad. But equally, build a business of no regrets. Because we spend a lot of time in business. About 100,000 hours, by the way. 100,000 hours in a career. And that's for the ones who are kind of doing normal careers. You crazy bastards are working really long hours, so you're doing a lot more than that. So if we are not building a business with fun and love and passion, all that great stuff Chris talked about, what are we building? And life's too short. And by the way, 12 years ago, I was building the wrong businesses. I was doing it for the money. I was doing it for all the wrong reasons. I'd come through the corporate career. I've done all of that. And I kind of went into entrepreneurial parks for the wrong reasons. and I swore never again. So I built several companies, and my whole methodology and is called Strategy on a Page now. All that stuff we've been talking about today, I just wanted to get it on one page, because let's just face it, all those people who write business plans, one, I hate writing business plans. Two, you only read the first page anyway, you lazy bastards. So let's just get it down to one page and get on with it. But we have to get all, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. You have to get it all on one page, but then the trouble is the planning system's out there, and I've been using one-page plans for 15 years, by the way, and some of the top corporations in the world have been doing so. But it didn't fit the small business, it didn't fit the rising business and the scaling business. And it missed some really important components for me. I'm not going to go through this today because I'm going to hit 2 points, but the point being is, where does innovation lie within this page? Bearing in mind, I'm taking people from the passion, the purpose of why you exist in the first place. Massive vision. We talked about vision earlier. You need a big vision, through the values and the culture and the organization, right through strategy, the whole spectrum of strategy, not just one, because most businesses are really two-sided, where you need to be five-sided. You need to have sales, marketing, operations, cash, talent, all lined up, pointing in the right direction. You need to be measuring it, but more importantly, you need to be taking action and executing it month to month. Now, where does innovation lie with all of this? Everywhere. Now, I came out of management consulting a long time ago. About 14 years ago, I was running the innovation factory for a big government boutique. And I came in, and innovation was, and by the way, innovation hasn't changed that much. It's been a buzzword for 15 years. Innovation, as always, and it's still being talked about in technology and product terms and everything else. For me, innovation is not one department. Innovation is the entire company. And I'm going to talk culture in a minute, and I'm really honored to be following Chris, because what he's saying is absolutely spot on. It's the whole people. And we should be innovating in customer service. We should be innovating in service. We should be innovating in marketing. We should be innovating everywhere. Because if we're not, if we think one little person or one external agency or one little department's going to fix the solution for the company, we are deluded. It's not going to happen. We have to embed it through the whole company. Now let's take this then. If we don't have a why, if we start with that heart, if we start with that purpose, with a why, if you don't start from that point, any innovation is likely to be misguided. So what the hell are we innovating for? We've got to answer that question. So why? Why are we innovating? What are we doing it for? I always begin everything with purpose. Always, always, always. Anyone that comes and works with me, with all of the events we do and all the one-to-ones, I will never, ever start anywhere else. People come to me to raise capital. People come to me for strategy. I won't touch it at all unless you can tell me why. You tell me the why, then we can go to work. And what I've discovered in my career is that there's multiple sets of why. I hate mission statements. They usually don't mean anything. I've seen 2 in my life which actually meant something. The rest is complete horseshit, and I don't understand why people are writing them. And they're usually written for the wrong reason. Mission statements are written for external, not for internal. It should be for both. So here's the 5 elements very quickly, because I want to really drive into the one area of strategy. I found that these 5 need to be lined up in every company. And actually it's almost like a pitch. You should absolutely love what you do, full stop, passion. You've started to hear those words. You hear this word, this is nothing new, and yet people kind of gloss over that word as if it's some fluffy thing that needs to... It's absolutely integral in all we do. But that one word has got such depth to it. It's what is it you'd love to do, truly? What you get out of bed for the morning, what does everybody in the company stand behind? And everyone will have a different passion, but you've got to align them to something common. Then we must be bringing service and value to the world in what we do, in a market opportunity which is there to be served. Otherwise, it's a hobby business. We've got to be careful with the opportunity. I put finance right in the center of purpose. Controversial. But this is critical for Gen Y. By the way, what is the purpose of a corporation? Shareholder return. Yeah, money, somebody said. Not good enough anymore. It never was good enough, by the way. It's good enough for the shareholders, but it needs to have so much more depth for the employees. And Generation Y won't put up with that shit. By the way, how many Generation Ys have we in? We haven't got that many Generation Ys in there. I know you all look young, right? But about under 30, 33, 35, a few Gen Ys. Okay, awesome. Right, I've got your back today, all right? This final piece here, lifestyle. We have to put life back into business. Now, I think it should be there anyway, personally. Gen Y won't put up with anything less. Quite rightly so. Now, here's the killer. For the really super successful people in the room, which is going to be most of you because you wouldn't be in the room if you weren't, you hit these top 4, you'll screw up number 5. Because if you really love what you do and you're adding massive service and value and there's a massive market opportunity to do so and the fiscal purpose is in place, you'll probably destroy your health, your fitness, and your loved relationships around you. Nervous chuckles around the room because you know it's true. I did it twice. I burnt out twice in my early 30s. Because I thought that's what you're supposed to do. Because that was the shitty advice I was passed down from the generation before me. Because they did it too. I just think it should stop here. It should stop at this generation. Now, I can't go into the depth of that today. All my methodology is fully open source. You'll just contact me and I get it to you, okay? But the message I want to do is you've got to take the why and you've got to move it through strategy. And I just wanted to land one strategy with you today. Because in the time I've got, I can only do one. So the question is which one is it? Now, you take the purpose and you drive it through what I call the spectrum. Now, the spectrum of strategy is always there in every company. Marketing, sales, operations, cash, talent. It sounds really simple, and yet there's always one missing, strategically. Sometimes 2, and on the occasion 3. Oops, then we've got a big problem. And I'm talking, when I say missing, I mean you think you got it, but you really don't. You haven't moved with the times, you haven't reset. I'm not going to mention names sadly, but I am advising a FTSE 100 right now, and I came in and they were missing marketing in a big way. And I'm not going to cover that one today because there's some cool marketeers in the room, but out of those 5 in the last decade, which strategies changed the most? Marketing. It's just not recognizable anymore. Now, so for the old guys in the room and girls in the room who've kind of been around a while, marketing used to be the department of coloring in. And now it's suddenly mathematics. And what people used to think was marketing, it's just so beyond now what their understanding is. And I'm working with a number of baby boomers who still have not remotely worked it out. They think this Twitter thing is something to do with it, but they're not quite sure. And the talent needed to transition that, and the talents in Gen Y typically, is just a completely different breed. You need mathematicians working in your marketing department now. You need a few people to color in as well, but that's a different story. But which strategy am I going to go after out of here? In all businesses, now by the way, I've run 20 of my own. I screwed 7 of them up badly. So I've got a lot of battle scars. And I've advised over 300 now. It's been a busy year last year. And I only worked out after the first 100. I was like, oh my God, it's the same shit all the time. Why didn't anyone tell me that? And it was always talent. Always, always talent. Because we're all so busy about the idea, and we're all so busy executing, we're all so busy getting the businesses built, we forget that the most important thing of all is the people. You want to innovate? People. Who the hell does the innovation? Where did ideas come from? So what's the most important strategy of them all? People. By the way, cash is really close to it, because you need the cash to get the people. So those two come hand in hand. But as the bigger you get, cash becomes less of a problem, talent becomes definitely much more. So if you think that innovation is everywhere in the page and people are the key to innovation, then shouldn't be our primary strategy. And I get this asked a lot on podcasts and stuff around the world. They go, so Deri, if you could give, everyone goes, if you could give one piece of advice. I'm like, this is strategy. There's no one piece of advice. But if there was one, it would be learn how to hire and keep the top talent. Now, that sounds really simple. Yeah, how many people I've got are spending at least a quarter of your time focused purely on talent? And by the way, I can rattle off a number of private equity guys who are insisting that the CEO spends 30% of their time on talent development these days. That's a shift. But isn't this where it should be? And I had to, this is new stats coming out now, by the way. So in this room, I just want to go, it's talent. Talent's the number one strategy. And actually, talent, for most people in the room, Gen Y. We've got to address this Gen Y thing. Because a lot of people are kind of glossing over it a little bit. And the world has changed so much. And here's the stats. I got these stats out I literally had to keynote in Lanzarote 6 weeks ago to a big global conference. I thought I better get some stats for these guys because they were kind of numbers junkies and they wanted some numbers, right? Oh my God, I hadn't realized. I knew it was bad, but I didn't realize how bad. 59% of employees are not satisfied, 27% are not happy with their skills development, and 24% are actively seeking job change. So if you look to your left and you look to your right, and the person next, and one of you is looking for a job right now. That's the stats. Gen Y will change jobs every 2.1 years. Gen Y is in the room going, yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm not putting up with this shit. My boss is an arse. I'm off. And this was the horrible one. Now I'm all about engagement, full engagement. And I put this up. I just knew there was a non-engagement there. And then I got a stat out of Gallup 2 weeks ago. 85% of employees are currently unengaged. Now, so you're going to do all this innovation stuff. You're going to have these really cool ideas. And then you're going to land that on 85% of your staff who really don't give a shit. Don't you think that's a problem? And if we don't address that problem as a primary, no innovation in the world is going to help you. It's horrible out there. By the way, it doesn't have to be that way. That's the good news. That's just the statistics, and I'm all for bucking statistics, right? Statistics are there because they're an average. I don't think anyone in this room is average. You don't want to be averaged. Average is bad. So we've got to go, how the hell do we change that? Because we've got to just engage Generation Y in a different way. And Generation Y are driven to be happy. Now, that's not hard, we think. But the baby boomers, now, this is time to wake up, right? It's the time to wake up, and I'm pretty irreverent in the way I'm in boardrooms. A lot of boardroom people just need a really good hard slap and a wake up because they're delusional. And I sat in because thankfully I choose my clients these days, and I sat in this Fortune FTSE 100 board. And they sat there and they went, well, 60% of this board are graduates from 1950, so it's our graduates are our future. I went, your graduates won't be with you in 2 years, let alone 50 years. You're fucking delusional. And they didn't believe me. And I went, go and do the maths. Go and ask your HR department to find out how many of your graduates are still with you from the last 10 years. Go do the maths. And they came back with their tails between their legs 2 weeks later, and they went, oh my God, it's horrible there. I went, yes. Because if you carry on doing the shit you're doing, they're going to leave you. But we had to, and that was we had to put up with this shit, so they're going to have to do the same. Well, good luck with that, because they're all going to leave. And that's what they're doing. So we're changing it, but we have to change it. By the way, this is why the people in the room, entrepreneurs, oh boy, that's the good news, right? Another stat, bad hire costs 20 times salary. Stats out of America. So let's just put it back into maths for those mathematicians in the room who like money. You're just like, oh yeah, whatever, Deri. Yeah, if you make a bad hire, it's going to really cost you. And that's proven in America right now, in the corporates. I can get to 10 times. Give me your company and a piece of paper, 5 minutes, I can get to 10 times salary. You make a bad hire, that's going to leave you 10 times salary. So this is not just fancy kind of cultural nice to have stuff. This is critical. But the good news is, for entrepreneurs, and the corporates in the room, by the way, if you get it right, this is what I wonderful. I think the corporate get the right passion behind you, the corporates with the right purpose, the corporates who are prepared to step up. And by the way, the best are doing this. The Googles, etc., are winning the war. The rest of them haven't woken up yet. Banks have got a way to go, by the way. The banks have got issues in this, and the lawyers. This whole sector. I'm going to go right after you now. But the whole world's changing. The business models are being changed. A lot of people were talking about being partner and stuff. Most Generation Y couldn't give a shit. They don't want to. They're not going to do the hard yards for 2 decades to become partner. They say, screw that. I want life now, thanks. I'm not going to trade the next 20 years to maybe have a life later. I'm not doing it. So the models are being disruptive. We were talking earlier, and you're like, I want to sit in Spain and just do my work in the mornings. Yeah, go you. And that's what Gen Y want too. Let's give it to them. Otherwise, they will leave. And that's what we've got to do here. So we are winning, and there's so many weapons we've got as entrepreneurs, by the way, that the big boys don't. This is the cool thing. A lot of people say, well, I can't get talent. Yes, you can. You can. It's totally disrupted. So, competitive advantage equals talent. Talent equals culture, and culture equals innovation. So for me, it's all about the talent. It has to be. It has to be about the people. Now, if you're going to go and climb the highest mountain in the world, why not break a world record whilst you're about it? We went for the highest black tie dinner party in the world. You liked fun, Chris? That's some fun. And not just any black tie dinner party, bring Sat Baines, Michelin star chef, with you. #1 Michelin star restaurant in the country last year. Now, talent, when I say talent, I mean talent. I mean best in world. This is Neil Lawton. He guided Bear Grylls up Everest. This is the best Sherpa in the world, right here. Would you scrimp on a Sherpa if you were on Everest? And yet, we seem to scrimp on our staff. And I'm not talking talent at the top levels of the organization. When I talk talent, everyone goes, oh, yeah, it's about the directors. No. Talent all the way through. All the way through. The most important people on this mountain were the Sherpas. Now, 24 hours later, this is the best oxygen guy on the mountain, Ted Atkins. He actually runs all the oxygen on both north and south side. He was on our team. Sat Baines came down, high-altitude pulmonary edema. That happened 24 hours before the picture of me. That's why I thought it was my turn. And now you see the story evolve. So with the best talent in the world around me, the world moved, we cracked on. And why did we crack on? Because we didn't know what was happening. We didn't know it was an earthquake. And 4 hours later, we got into the North Col. We were on one of the most brutal high-altitude climbs on Earth. We didn't have any communication to tell us any otherwise. Only then did we realize what we were in. And as the next 12 hours unfolded, we realized what had happened. We realized we were in an earthquake, and the second one hit when we were up there. I'm not stupid. I knew what the second one was. It's like, I know that one. That's an earthquake. But then what happened next was you're on that mountain. Earthquakes happened twice. A lot of people dead. And now, what do you do? Everyone else had left. Remember, we're the highest people in the world now. The whole south side of the mountain's gone. Everyone's evacuated. We were the only people up this high. So you're in business. Your competitors have been wiped out. Mountain to yourself. What do? You crack on. Who said that? Good man. And that's what we did. 10,000 hours went into Everest. This was my 6th summit. We were ready for death, by the way. A lot of people talk about the death side. There's 220 dead bodies on the north face of Everest. I was going to pass them. I was already prepared for that. And for the first time in history, we had Everest to ourselves. For the first time in history, there could be no more avalanches because the whole mountain had avalanched. By the way, a lot of people look at me as a risk taker. I'm not. I'm a risk mitigator. For me, that was the safest time to climb the mountain. 3 days, 3 nights we spent on the North Col. By the way, that was a big reflection point for me. It was a very, very interesting time to look back on your life. And I stayed. I was ready. But I had the best team in the world with me, and this is the thing. The reason I stayed and the reason we could have go was because I had the best team in the world with me. When the shit hits the fan in your business, that's not when you go, oh shit, I wish I hadn't half-assed that hire. Because they will leave you at that point, whereas the best will stay by your side and be loyal. And that's where we were. Now, after 3 days and 3 nights, the Chinese authorities removed us from the mountain. That's a longer story. I was talking to them through an illegal sat phone that I'd smuggled on the mountain, but I'm still here. They actually threatened us jail sentence, to which point we replied, how long for? Because I was really up for it, because I said, and apparently for the Chinese in the room or the Chinese people who have kind of Chinese awareness, be careful with sense of humor. It doesn't translate that well. Because I said, can you give me a pencil so I can start writing my book? And they really didn't think that was funny. So, but apparently, you don't want to mess with the Chinese authorities was the conclusion. Okay. So we were forced off the mountain, which was probably good. We had to self-evacuate. We had to walk ourselves off, full kit. Bad few days. But we got off. We were committed fully. And it's not over, because we'll be back. But here's the beautiful thing, and this is I will leave you with. That's my 3 girls. Now, look, that's a whole different story of Deri, how can you do crazy shit when I got kids? Because I'm showing them what's possible in life. And I'm showing them what living a life of no regrets is about. But the beautiful thing I found on Everest was 12 years ago when I sat on my father's deathbed. If I had gone out under a bus that day, I would have gone out with a shitload of regret. I had built the wrong businesses. I certainly hadn't had a go. I hadn't done any of the adventures I'd done, and I would have regretted so much in life. But I was able to look back on Everest and look over the past 10 years and go, do you know what? if I'd have gone out and I was that close to going out, I could do so with no regrets. And all I ask for all of you is to live that mentality, live a life and build a business with no regrets. Because in 65 years' time, when I'm sitting on my deathbed, because I reckon I'm going to 105, I swear, I'm so lucky, remember the lucky. And I'm going to be holding their hand, and I'm going to be looking them in the eye. But I'm going to go out in a different way. Because I'm going to say, girls, Daddy is going out quite happily with no regrets. And that's all I ask for you. God bless.